You are now listening to the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Welcome to They Live by Film, a platform dedicated to bringing you film discussion and interviews from around the world. I am Adam Lundy, and I am joined as always by my co-hosts Chris Haskell and Zach Bryant.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, happy March.
Yes, it's 2 days in. It's probably already horrible, so it's fine.
Beware the eyes
That's
of
crazy.
March.
Yeah, I can't believe it. This is one of these ones where it's like, have you ever heard the expression? Talk about, we were talking about kids before we started recording. Have you ever heard the expression long days, short months?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what this year's felt like to me.
In fairness, we did get through the shortest month. We didn't get the extra leap year day like we did last year.
True.
Don't gotta deal with that nonsense for a couple more years.
I'm so depressed right now, man. These last 3 days, watching everything in prep for this, I just feel like the world's a very dark place. Nothing to do with what's going on outside the podcast. Just seeing these movies the last 3 days.
Should have watched Shadow of the Vampire. I hope Adam, did you?
I didn't get a chance. No, I'm gonna try.
Man.
I'm gonna try and watch it sometime. My month has been crazy. I've barely watched anything, which I'll cover in any other business. But yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch it, unfortunately. But I'm gonna try and get to it at some point, and I'll maybe next month's any other business I can talk about it. But for this month's any other business, I'll just get mine out of the way because, as I said, I haven't had a chance to watch a ton. I had a really hectic middle of the month. I've only really gotten a chance to watch stuff in the past week, which included watching 2 out of the 3 films we're going to talk about today. A lot of my spare time because so my daughter has just been sick, just had a viral infection. Well, nothing like serious or anything, just a bad cold. So we've been up with her and stuff. So I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch a movie, but I've been catching up with rewatching Twin Peaks because I can just kind of have that in the background and I can turn it off and on whenever I want. It's not really too. It's not the same as like I hate starting movies and then rewatching them later or whatever. So I feel better doing that with TV. So I've just been rewatching Twin Peaks. I'm at the
Mhm.
bad part of season 2 now, so I'm just trying to
My
power through.
condolences.
Yeah, I'm just
Are you
trying to
doing
power
missing
through.
pieces after you finish?
I've never seen Missing Pieces.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun for you to
So
do that.
yeah, I think I might do Missing Pieces because I've never seen it. So I think I'll do that this time. After I watch Fire Walk with Me. Um, but yeah, I'm at the bad part of season 2, so I'm just trying to power through that now so I can get to the end of season 2 before things get good again.
Yeah, it's like my memory is the end of season 2 is good.
The
Just
last
not.
episode is good, yeah, because Lynch
Yeah.
came back for the last episode to kind of wrap things up after they had confirmed it was getting cancelled. Lynch came back to wrap things up in the last episode, so the last episode's good, but everything up in between, sort of the first few episodes of season 2 are good, and then the studio pushed them to kind of reveal everything, and then Lynch went off to go make Wild at Heart, and it was just Mark Frost kind of left hanging to kind of pick up all the pieces with a bunch of staff writers, and half a season where they'd already solved the main mystery, so they just had a bunch of random plots that they had to keep going just to get to the end of the season. So it's an absolute mess. It's not good. Nobody enjoyed
My
it. So
visualization is like that Donald Glover thing from Community where Lynch just comes back to the writer's room and it's just everything's on fire.
yeah, it's pretty much yeah, and again, it's not really the fault of any one person or anything. It's just the way it went. Like if you're gonna blame anyone, you just blame. I think it was ABC, was the studio. You just gotta blame them for kind of pushing them to reveal stuff 7 episodes into a fucking 20 episode season, so that they didn't really have anything to talk about for the last 13. But yeah, it was yeah, I'm just pushing through that at the moment. But I have had time to watch a couple of films, catching up on some more recent-ish releases. Well, one non-recent one, I rewatched Blue Velvet for the first time in, I'd say it's over 10 years, and I just forgot about how good it is. It's a crazy good film. It's such a great neo-noir, just it really tickles that noir part of my brain, while also being weird and Lynchian. So yeah, Blue Velvet, hot take, Blue Velvet's great. That's my hot take of the episode. But then the more recent-ish films I've seen, I watched The Last Showgirl, which is the Gia Coppola film. It's a vehicle for Pamela Anderson. She kind of plays an aging Las Vegas showgirl whose show is getting shut down, and she just doesn't no idea what to do with her life because it's all she's known. And Pamela Anderson's great in it. It's really, really vulnerable performance, and it has a stupid cast. Let me just pull it up here really quick. It's so the supporting cast includes Jamie Lee Curtis, who's playing just this really trashy cocktail wait. It's crazy. What like she's wearing like she's more orange than Donald Trump. She's wearing this ridiculous wig. She's just super trashy cocktail waitress who's like friends with Pamela Anderson. Dave Bautista plays the kind of guy who runs the show. Brenda Song and Kiernan Shipka play other showgirls in the show that Pamela Anderson kind of is like their maternal figure. Billy Lord plays Pamela Anderson's daughter. She's not very good. She's definitely the worst part of the film. I don't think Billy Lord's a very good actress anyway, but yeah, she's not very good in this, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty decent film. It's kind of weirdly shot and edited. Some of the sequences are a bit kind of like I don't know if they were the best artistic choices from a technical point of view. There's like some scenes that are like out of a Terrence Malick film, so it's just kind of jarring when it jumps between that and then the showgirl stuff. But yeah, it was an interesting and it's definitely worth it just for Pamela Anderson's performance alone. She's really great in it. And it's great to see her be able to do like a proper dramatic performance, you know. Um, I watched another 2024 film last night, which was A Real Pain, just the Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin film that Jesse Eisenberg wrote and directed. It's about these two Jewish cousins who travel to Poland to kind of see their grandmothers, or this kind of town where their grandmother came from. Um, and it's a pretty decent script. I would feel like it would probably resonate with you more if you're Jewish watching it, because obviously a lot of the themes kind of deal with that, especially like, you know, the guilt that perhaps American Jews would feel, sort of realizing how easy they have it compared to, you know, Jews during the Holocaust and stuff like that. That's a big kind of key theme in the film. I feel like it'd probably resonate with you more if you're Jewish. For me, you know, it was just your kind of standard odd couple on the road film because the two characters are very like polar opposites. So it is just kind of one of those odd couple on the road style films, like a planes, trains, automobiles style film, where these two polar opposites are kind of put together, traveling around. But
That's a really interesting like non-traditional casting as far as like having people that someone who's not Jewish in a role like that.
yeah,
Um,
that was a big thing. Jesse Eisenberg was really struggled, really battled with casting Kieran Culkin in the role.
okay.
And they only did it because they just thought he was the best fit for the role. And Kieran Culkin himself tried to drop out 2 weeks before because he just wasn't feeling comfortable doing it because he felt like the role should be, a Jewish actor should be doing the role.
Yeah, it's not like it's
Um,
hard to find Jewish people in Hollywood. I mean, like
yeah,
the,
exactly. But to be fair, like he was definitely the best part of the film. He was nominated for for best supporting
yeah.
actor in the Oscars this year for it. He was definitely the
And he'll
best part
probably
of the
win.
film. Yeah, I can't remember who else is nominated in the category. But yeah, it was. I think in the end they made a good choice with doing it. But yeah, it was something that I was reading about it afterwards, and because Neve was asking me, she was like, I thought Kieran Culkin was like Catholic, like Irish American, and I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, it makes
exactly.
sense with the name, Kieran and Macaulay, and it's very Irish names.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Maybe they have a Jewish mom or something. And I was like, okay, I'll look into it. But no, and yeah, like I said, Jesse Eisenberg really kind of struggled with doing the casting, not struggling to find someone, but struggling with the idea of casting Kieran in it. But in the end, it just ended up being the best fit. And like I said, it was weird for Kieran as well. But it ended up being a good performance. Even if the film is like nothing amazing or anything, it's like I said, it's still very much a buddy road movie with two guys who are just like the opposite of each other, and it's kind of been done a million times already, but it just has an extra layer of, what the actual themes are and where they are and stuff that add an extra dimension to it. But like I said, it would probably resonate with a Jewish person more than it would for someone like myself who isn't who's not really anything. Um, yeah, that was I watched that last night, and then the most recent film that I saw was Companion. That's a 2025 release. So I watched my first 2025 film. Um, and yeah, that was Companion, which is it's fine. I think me and Zach, we ended up, I think we landed pretty much in the same boat with the Companion, that it's a perfectly fine way to spend 90 minutes, even if it doesn't really push any boundaries or does anything game changing. But it's a pretty fun 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's just like I mentioned in my review, and I won't spoil anything, but like I felt like they just missed a lot of opportunity. Like there's a part where she like gets a hold of the phone and she like moves her like intelligence up to like 100%, and there's like no difference. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, she's still the same person. It's like she's not smarter or anything. Like I thought from there she was like going to put some like wild traps out in the woods or something.
I think there was definitely, they could have pushed things further than they did. I don't know if it was budgetary issues or something where maybe they didn't do that, but yeah, I thought they could have pushed things a little bit. Everything's very kind of surface level. But if you want to watch a film, where there's weird shit happening for 90 minutes, it's kind of funny as well. I'd call it like a dark comedy. I don't even know if I'd really even call it a horror film. It's more of a sci-fi film with kind of horror and comedy elements in it. Um, yeah, it's like I said, it's perfectly fine, adequate way to spend 90 minutes of your life. I don't think many people would be annoyed with spending that time watching it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
popcorn cinema for Ex Machina.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's me anyway. For since we last spoke, anyway.
I can go next
Yeah, sure.
because I'm gonna try to remember to do this every time we record. So for February, I watched 62 movies.
Oh my gosh.
So I got a few. So I won't go through all 62. Don't worry. So I'll start with The Monkey came out, so I want to do a bunch of prep for Stephen King stuff. So kind of rewatched a few things, watched a few things I hadn't seen before. Rewatched Carrie. Carrie's great. I actually haven't seen it in so long. I just forgot how good Carrie was. So perfect movie. No notes. Watch Creep Show, which is the anthology that King wrote and Romero directed, and it's decent. Like there's a few good segments in there. It's directed really well. Like I think it's probably one of Romero's best looking movies. But as far as the stories, it's like any anthology. They're a pretty mixed bag. There's some good ones, some okay-ish ones. I watched Silver Bullet, which I have not seen since I was a kid. I watched it with my mom when I was real little. The only thing I remembered was the motorcycle like wheelchair thing. That's the only thing in my memory. Movie's dope. Really, really good. Terry O'Quinn is in it, who I'm always a big fan of. Then I watched. Felt like it was appropriate since I watched a Romero film, and I went to go see The Monkey, so I watched Monkey Shines, which is basically guy's a quadriplegic. He gets a monkey that is supposed to help him do tasks around the house. The monkey becomes very possessive of him because it's been hit with like this weird gene his brother came up with that's supposed to make them smarter. It's like the simian flu, but not quite. And yeah, the monkey starts killing people when it gets jealous of like their interactions with him.
Okay.
Yeah, really cool movie. Really enjoyed it. Then I rewatched The Mist, watched the black and white version, which is the superior version. The CGI actually looks more acceptable. Like it doesn't look better, but it makes more sense. And yeah, Mist is great. Then to end my like Stephen King watch before The Monkey, I watched The Dark Tower, which is just bad. Like I
You
went into
poor
it
bastard.
yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go into this because I was like, look, it's like an 87 movie without credits, 87 minutes. I just need to separate The Dark Tower from it and just watch it as a movie.
No, no,
And it's fucking terrible. It's just a
no.
bad movie. It's a bad YA movie. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, man, this is like McConaughey. Like a lot of people I've heard praise McConaughey. I feel like he's sleepwalking through it.
No, no, no. Nothing is good about that disaster of a movie. Don't.
Yeah, like I don't mind Idris Elba as Roland. I actually don't think that's terrible casting. I don't think McConaughey's bad casting. I just don't think he tried.
If anything, McConaughey's great casting.
Yeah,
Uh,
like as Randall Flagg is a good idea.
Yeah.
the casting was perfect. I was so pumped for this movie when it came out. Like Idris Elba as the man in black or the man in dark is amazing
No,
casting. He's
that's the
perfect.
opposite way.
Oh,
Opposite way
oh,
around.
oh, oh. It's he plays Roland. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Roland. Yeah. That's great casting. Like I totally believe him as the quiet cowboy, like and especially book two as they kind of like build out the team and there's like he can add a junkie to his team and the one with the wheelchair like I couldn't wait for them to start building into this, and then the movie happened. Yeah, and I was just like, what the fuck? It's like it was made by somebody who hates the book. It seems like,
Or
Well,
just
see,
didn't read it.
the
or
thing
didn't
with the
read.
Dark Tower movie, and I'm not going to give spoilers, but you guys will know as you've read the series. The Dark Tower movie is a sequel to the books
Yeah, technically, and
because
that would be the
he
worst.
has
Yeah,
the horn. He has the
yes.
horn.
Yeah, like I kind of like the
Oh,
way they went about it. Like that's a good idea. Like on its own, that's kind of a good idea. And the only thing that kind of kept me entertained though is there's a ton of Stephen King references in it, but they're like haphazardly thrown in. So it's just like, oh, I know that book. Oh, I know that book. Oh, I know that book. And that's all it really was. It's the only thing that kept me entertained for like the 87 minutes of that movie. And yeah, it was not great. And honestly, I had just watched The Stand, which I forgot to mention. I watched the 6-hour miniseries, and I can't remember the guy's name who played Randall Flagg in that. He is so good in that movie, and like the dude had never really acted before. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of disappointing that they get a real actor for Randall Flagg, and it's like, or Walt or whatever his name is in Dark Tower. I get them mixed up. But yeah, it's kind of disappointing to have McConaughey, and it's just like, he's fine in it, I guess. But Mike Flanagan will hopefully save us with a 5-season TV show here in the next few years. Which I heard somebody speculate like good casting for that would be like getting Walton Goggins to play Roland and getting Timothy Oliphant to play the Man in Black. And I'm like, honestly, that would work. I would be fine with that.
And it's funny, you could actually do the opposite. I think I think Timothy Oliphant would be a good Roland, and Walton Goggins would be a good Man in Black.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, either one would work. I think the only reason I like that is I'm a big Justified fan, so it'd be kind of nice to see them kind of switch.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I would be down for that, though they're kind of getting to an age where I'm not sure they're going to be able to do it forever, though I don't think Roland's age matters all that much, but people are going to be picky about the show no matter what. But yeah, so after that, I did finally see The Monkey. Excellent movie. Highly recommend. If you like Final Destination and family trauma, that's the one to go for. And then let's see. Been watching the Trimmer series. Actually pretty fun. I've gotten through the first 5. Even number 5 is pretty solid. And then I know they go downhill with 6 and 7, so I've been kind of dreading finishing it out. Let's see. I watched Psycho 4, which finally I watched all the Anthony Perkins ones. And have either one of y'all finished all the Psycho sequels? Adam, for some reason I assume you haven't.
I've never even seen Psycho 2, and I know that one's meant to be good.
Yeah. Psycho 2's fantastic. What about you, Chris? Have you watched them all?
no, in fact, every Halloween I debate because I have that British box set that came out, or German box set that came out that has all the movies, the TV series, and something else, and maybe like a documentary or something. I don't know, but every Halloween I think is going to be the year I do it. But maybe this year is. How are they?
Oh, they're all great. Like it's one of those things where it's like surprisingly good. Like I actually like the second one more than the original.
Yeah.
I think it's really good. And 3 and 4, Anthony Perkins directs 3, and he directs it really well. But apparently, he wasn't happy with it, and he just said he wasn't a good director, and he never did it again. That movie's really well directed. I hate that he decided that he didn't think it was for him because he was really good for that.
Hmm.
And even 4, which is the Mick Garris one, who I think is the weakest director of the 4 who did it, even his is pretty solid. It's a good conclusion, if nothing else, because it comes out in 1990 and Perkins dies in like 92. So
Okay.
it's at least a nice send off, if nothing else. And From there, the only thing I've really gotten into is I started an Abel Ferrara run, trying to get through all of his movies. And I started with his first one, which for once, it's me this week who gets to mention some pornography he watched. I watched Nine Lives of a Wet Pussy, which was his first movie, which is not good, if anyone's shocked. It's not a very good movie.
In what way? Like it's not a good porno, or just not a good like movie?
It's just not a good it's completely incoherent. Like I know that's not the reason anybody watched it, but when you're doing a director run, I guess you kind of like I remember watching it and I was like, I guess for a second I forgot it was a porno. So I was like, man, this blowjob scene has went on really long. I'm like, oh right, it's porn. That's right, that's right. Can't look at it like a movie, but no, there's like this narration basically in between sex scenes. I don't even know what it's about. I was like, okay, well, I watched it. Thanks, Abel Ferrara, and he's even in the movie, so it's like, oh, okay,
Oh,
cool.
you see Abel's Ferrara?
Well, I don't. The way it's cut, I suspect, and I mean, I guess if I ever decided to buy the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray, I could find out through the commentary. But the way it's cut, I don't think it's him. His
Okay.
character, which is only in like one scene, but it's never cut in a wide enough way where you see him and his junk at the same time. So I'm almost like, I don't think it's the same person.
That's interesting. He got Willem Dafoe to be a stunt cock.
Yeah, I mean, well, apparently that comes later because Willem Dafoe plays in a lot of his movies from what I was
Yeah,
looking at
yeah,
earlier. Yeah, so and then I watched The Driller Killer last night, which was better the second time than it was the first time.
yeah.
It's still kind of like there's a good vibe with Driller Killer, but even for like how short the movie is, sometimes it feels like it goes on for a really long time.
I liked it, but I mean, I know I think we ended up pretty close on ratings. I would never say it's a
Yes.
perfect movie.
No, but I mean, it's got a cool vibe to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is a very vibe first, plot second type
Yes,
movie.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then tonight, I guess I'm going to watch Miss 45 again, so I can see like I love the ideas. Like, okay, I'm going to do a rape revenge movie, but I'm going to have her get raped twice in back to back scenes by completely unrelated people.
Yeah.
Like that is how you make these. Do remember liking the movie, but I remember watching like Jesus Christ, man, the first one was enough. You didn't need to do a second one.
Yeah. That's tricky though, right? Because he like literally just came off of like porn, and I guess Driller Killer was he replaced basically sex scenes with violence, but then I think he was still finding his voice a little bit. But after you get past that, Miss 45 is great. It's I
Yeah.
think it's amazing how quickly he ramped up and became like a confident director.
Yeah, it's the reason I've also wanted to do a Craven run, but I also have to watch his incest porno if I ever did that in order. And I'm just like, I'd have like at least, with Ferrera's, it was only 70 minutes. I was like, yeah, I can deal with that. Which apparently they had that his porno on Mubi. And I was like, that's so wild to me that Mubi just played that. And I'm like, when it was on X Hamster for free. Like, you didn't even have to pay for it, guys. It's for free online.
That's funny. Yeah, I guess it adds an air of credibility to it if you're watching it on movie.
And it doesn't deserve any credit. Like, yeah, Abel Ferrara made it. It's cool. It's got like a historical element. The movie's not good. It's like not even a movie. When I went into, because I'm not, some connoisseur of 70s pornography, but I always kind of in my mind thought it was going to be more like Franco, where it's like, okay, yeah, sure, there's a lot of nudity here, but there's a plot, kinda, there's a plot there. And then I watched this, I'm like, there's no plot in this thing. I was like, this is no different than modern porn. What am I watching this for?
Have you seen Sylvester Stallone's early porno yet?
I have not. That has not been on my watch list, to be honest.
It's not quite as like bizarre as Bad Pussy, but like it's heading that direction. It's just like the premise of the movie is just weird, and like it's not really a great hardcore film in the sense like if you go into it wanting to watch sex, it's kind of disappointing. And they try to make this weird plot about it just being about a group of friends hanging out. I don't know. It's really weird.
This is why we have an explicit rating on our podcast, by the way. This whole conversation.
I was just about to say, if listeners, if you enjoy this conversation, please check out Chris's other podcast, Punk Vacation, where he talks about this shit a lot more often.
Yeah, because this is all new territory for me. I'm trying to write a review for everything I watched this year, and I was like, "How the fuck do I review this? It's just
Just watch,
porn. It's
just
just
watch,
porn."
watch the Taboo series. Wait till you watch that.
Oh Jesus Christ! I'm not in a rush. Maybe if I end up on your show, I'll do that. All right, I think I'm finished. I think I ended on a high note. Chris, you finish us out.
That's a funny way to transition. Um, Coming off of talking about porn. Um, okay, so speaking of porn,
Jesus Christ! I did set it up well for you.
no, so there has been, as has been well documented on many shows, including ours, and many shows in the world, there has been a boom in Category 3 releases in the boutique Blu-ray world, which I'm so excited about, including two movies in March from Vinegar Syndrome, which I am so pumped about. One of them is called Devil Fetus, which I can't wait. Have y'all ever any chance you've seen that?
No.
You
The
know who you're
premise,
talking. Why do you even ask? You know who you're talking to here.
wait until you hear the premise. It's right up your alley, Adam. A woman, a woman buys a vase that's shaped like a phallic symbol and uses it as a dildo, and it impregnates her with the devil. And her husband catches her and kills her, and then years later it comes back and somebody awakens the spell and unleashes the devil on the world.
That just
So,
sounds just like every one of Adam's favorite movies.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'm sick of seeing that story, honestly. It's
Can't wait for the world to see Devil Fetus in high definition because it's really like a fun, gory, goofy movie. Uh, um, I mean, like not goofy, so gory, like violent movie. Um, but and then Her Vengeance, which is a rape revenge movie told, but like it's the kind of rape revenge movie where in the revenge part she like bites the ear clear off the face. So like it's a Category 3 style rape revenge movie. So I think people are gonna have fun with that one. Um, but those kind of movies come out. But then there's another area of Category 3, which is just like it's kind of interesting to watch because imagine a porno, but they don't actually show insert like they don't actually show what's the word why is my brain blanking penetration, so they weren't allowed to show that, but they could basically show everything else. So there's the trilogy called the Erotic Ghost Story trilogy, and it's interesting because they actually like build on the lore each time. And then the third one, the first two, like they build on the lore and they're very connected. And um, one of them is more of like almost like a folk story, like has kind of a like a twist at the end, almost like a morality tale where like it's like be careful to have three nymph like fairy sisters sleep with a random stranger they meet in the woods. Um, and then the second one takes it to like a weird place and they get really artistic with it. And it's like, okay, what if this demon that they killed in the first one is like trapped in hell and is torturing people in hell, and some women enjoy it and then they have to try to beat him in hell. It goes to a weird place. And then the third one becomes kind of like Halloween 3, where they just go in their own direction. And it's something totally different. But yeah, I've been watching those. I have to feel like we should at least talk about THX 1138 for 30 seconds because I did like it a lot better than I did last time I saw it. Like I remember the first time I saw it, I just wanted to like shoot myself. I was so bored. Um, but I have to give, credit where it's due. Like the movie definitely has a vision and it's pretty amazing that I mean, now that we know who George Lucas is, like, it doesn't seem amazing that he got that cast, but I mean, he didn't, the world didn't know who George Lucas was when he made that movie, right? This is just like something built off of his student film. So the cast is pretty amazing for that movie, and it's a pretty confidently directed first film. Like, I have to give him credit. Yeah, I get it. I get why people like it, and I get why people still talk about it.
I assume that's the type of movie he's like, because The thing with Lucas is, from my understanding, he like still directs. He just doesn't release any of it. So I
Yeah.
assume this is more of what he's like showing his friends and stuff like that, because like, yeah, he doesn't want to make movies after dealing with Star Wars fans, which I don't blame him. I would be done too. So understandable.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I mean that I've been watching a lot for the Vinegar Syndrome podcast, and for Punk Vacation, and I just want to quickly call out. I feel like this month has been like my Christmas. I've got to interview Tom Mess, Frank Jang, and then I just wrapped up an interview with Eugenio Orcolani. Frank Jang was for They Live by Film, but the other two were for the different podcasts, one for Mondo Macabro and one for Vinegar Syndrome. And I'm just sitting here talking to my heroes, like I'm just, it's just a normal day. So I've been super pumped and feel super lucky to have those connections. And at the end of the Ercolani interview, I was talking about having him on. He's working on 15 movies for Vinegar Syndrome right now. And so I was like, hey, as you have more that are like, you know, coming out, would you mind coming back and just talking about the release here or there? He was like, yeah, of course. So I don't know. It's just super pumped about that. And Eugenio Ercolani, his dad was a director of, or sorry, grandfather was a famous director in Italy in like the 40s, 50s. And then his mom was a script supervisor, and she worked for Fernando de Leo, amongst many other people. So he kind of has this Italian film royalty like in his blood. So it's cool to hear him talk about it because, Frank Jang, his big thing is he talks about Hong Kong movies from the perspective of actually knowing Cantonese and like knowing the cultural references. So there's a lot of great context there. Tom Mess has just been like a fanatical study of Japanese history and cinema. But for Eugenio, like sometimes he doesn't even have to research. He just knows everybody and like knows the stories and hung out with DeLeo before he died. So it's just, I don't know. It's a cool angle on it, and he's a good speaker anyways. So yeah, I've been really lucky this month.
I it seems like every time we record, I'm always just like, I can't believe that movie exists. And it always comes from Chris. Every time. I'm always amazed.
Cool. So let's move on to our featured presentations. So as you can see by the title of this episode, and if you stuck around to the end of last episode, we're going to be doing a Nosferatu triple feature. So I thought this would be an interesting experiment, or not experiment, but it's an interesting idea for us to watch essentially the same film three times, but made by different filmmakers, filmed in different eras, where both technical and thematic changes would be made depending on the way kind of society is at that stage,
Mm.
and just to see how the story evolved over time, but also how the filmmaking evolved, how the themes evolved, and how we got from point A to point B is where we are now. Obviously, this was inspired by the fact that the most recent kind of version of this came out at the end of 2024, start of 2025, depending on where you are in the world, with Robert Eggers' version of Nosferatu, which we'll get to later on in the episode. So we're going to jump back nearly 100 years, well, over 100 years, to 1922, which is the first adaptation of Dracula, although it was unofficial, and I'm sure we'll speak on that. And it's a film called Nosferatu, as you can understand. It's by F.W. Murnau. And the plot, if for whatever reason you have been living under a rock and you have no idea what the plot of Dracula or Nosferatu is, then the plot reads as follows. The mysterious Count Orlok summons Thomas Hutter to his remote Transylvanian castle in the mountains. The eerie Orlok seeks to buy a house near Hutter and his wife Ellen. After Orlok reveals his vampire nature, Hutter struggles to escape the castle knowing that Ellen is in grave danger. Meanwhile, Orlok's servant Nock prepares for his master to arrive at his new home. So yeah, that's basically the plot, and it's the same. It's pretty much the same as Dracula. It's an interesting. Do you guys? I assume you guys know about the whole controversy with this, film even existing in the first place. I assume you guys are aware of that.
Yeah, I actually wanted to delve in because of that, because I was kind of curious what you guys thought, because essentially they were required to try to destroy all of the prints of this film when
Correct. Yeah.
Stoker estate sued and won.
Yeah, it's a miracle the film is even available to see. I believe it was a copy that had made its way to Czechoslovakia is the one, the kind of main surviving one that most of current prints are based off, and more have cropped up over time, different versions of prints and stuff that have made its way out. But yeah, it was a film that shouldn't even really technically exist now. It should be a lost film. It's only true luck that it even survives, which is insane considering how important the film is to modern film.
And I'm it's kind of interesting because this is so early in like film history. So the idea of what is copyrighted, what is plagiarism has definitely evolved since then. I don't know even under if scrutiny today. Now obviously they wouldn't require destruction even if it was found at that you did plagiarize. But I don't even know if it would cross the hurdle now of being plagiarism. Like when
Oh,
you think about
I think it would have to, just because it is literally like, I don't know if you guys have read Dracula. It's the
it's been a
same.
long time.
It's the fucking same thing. It's literally
Yeah,
all
I know plot
all they
wise
did
it
is
is.
all they did is change the names of the people and places. It
No,
is beat for beat the same thing.
no, but there's like you. I mean, there's been a lot of cases in music that you could cite as uh, what's it called, precedent here, where it's just very similar. Like, the famous one is when Vanilla Ice was talking about the Queen
Mm,
song Under
yeah.
Pressure, and he like sings on air the difference, and it's a hilarious clip if you haven't seen
Yeah, it
it.
is very good. Yeah.
But then Ed Sheeran came on because he was getting sued for plagiarizing all these songs from the 70s. And in court, he brought his guitar and he showed how like every pop song ever made follows like the same chord progression. And he's like, you can't copyright a chord progression. So there's like, there's um, there's a lot of precedence for this in music, and I'm sure they would probably cite that.
Well, I
What's
also just think about things like you think about like we make fun of Hallmark rom coms. They're the same plot over
true?
and over and over again. Slasher, same plot over and over and over again. Where the execution of those is what differs. And like I said, I don't know how they would do it. I do think if this was an incident now, it would be kind of like Lockout, which was a Guy Pearce movie that came out, I think, in 2012, where John Carpenter sued and won because they said you ripped off Escape from New York. And he won that case, but all they had to do was when they put the print back out, say, based on the characters by John Carpenter, based on the story by John Carpenter, and pay him some money.
Well, the same thing happens today with those music cases. You just get added as a songwriter and you get royalty. The song doesn't get removed from streaming services, and all CDs are not deemed to be destroyed. You
Right.
know, when Ed Sheeran lost one that you mentioned, Chris, where he got lost the case for it was Marvin Gaye
Yeah.
was trying to sue him. Actually, I think the Marvin Gaye one didn't pass, but I think Marvin Gaye won when they sued your man Robin Thicke. Um, but anyway, any kind of case like that for music plagiarism, that you get, like we said, the music is never removed from streaming services. All vinyl records are to be burned, blah blah blah. They just get added as a songwriter and get royalties for it.
And I feel like that's got to be, I don't know why that wasn't really the option then. I'd be curious for somebody who's more into like silent films to say, why did this have to be destroyed?
Yeah, it's an interesting case, and part of me wonders. This is something that I'm curious about. Obviously, we know this was unofficially an unofficial adaptation. Now, I'm not sure the context as to why they didn't get, like, whether it was a case where they sought approval and didn't get it and then renamed everyone, or if they just thought they would get away with not having to pay royalties or whatever. I'm
This
not
British
sure.
woman will never know.
Yeah, like I'm not sure what the situation was there, but I'm wondering if they hadn't changed the names of everything and instead used the name Dracula, and in turn then kind of maybe helped sales of Dracula through the popularity of the film, would Stoker's widow have been that sort of would she have really pushed this case as far as it went?
Right.
Is it more of a case where not only did they steal all the ideas, but they renamed everyone so that there can be as minimal a connection to Dracula. It's like they just tried to pass it off as something new when it wasn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
There's
I can
subtle,
see that. Yeah.
there's subtle differences. I mean, this is really not a productive discussion in the sense that none of us are attorneys in the 1922, but there's there are subtle differences. Like, um, I don't remember in the book the wife. Is it Lucy? Who's the name of the wife in the book?
Yeah, yeah, Lucy,
Lucy, right? I
Mina's
don't remember
sister.
her having this like psychic connection with the vampire as much as it seems like she does in the movie. Maybe I'm
I
remembering
would
that
need to
wrong.
reread Dracula. It's been years since I've read it too. And
Yeah.
it's a weirdly long book.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's not like Frankenstein, which actually feels like a pretty quick and brisk read. Dracula is weirdly long.
Shout out to Frankenstein, by the way. If you haven't read that book and you're listening, like that book is surprisingly touching and sweet and sad and like well written.
And it's fairly modern for when it like came out. Like
Yeah,
it feels a lot more modern than Stoker's Dracula does.
true, true, true. Um, but anyways, I mean, yeah, I don't know why they ordered to destroy it. I imagine there was producers are notorious for not wanting to pay, so maybe they just got in a big argument. I don't ever
Maybe,
know.
or yeah, it could have been pay or destroy, and they said, "Fuck it, we'll just burn it. We already made our money."
Yeah, that
Right.
could be it. 'Cause they didn't really foresee Blu-ray sales when they were drawing this up in
They were like,
1922.
"Nobody's gonna miss this movie. Just burn it." And I
Yeah.
mean, it's you talk about that, and you talk about, and you know what? This is one thing. It's a slight off topic, but I really fucking hate Coppola right now because I keep getting Fritz Lang's famous silent film wrong because of Coppola's new fucking movie. So I'm gonna let Adam say it so I don't get it mixed up again.
What one?
The one
Oh,
that was
Metropolis.
Metropolis, yeah, because I was
Versus
like, I'm gonna fuck it up because of Coppola.
Megalopolis or whatever the fuck the Coppola one is.
Yeah, like
Megalopolis.
it, like I don't even say either one of them. I think I caught myself the other day where I mixed the two names. Like I mixed their words together, and I'm like,
Oh.
that's not right. But yeah, that was one that was also like almost lost. Right, that was one that was kind of like caught in Argentina, if I remember
Yeah, I
correctly.
believe the current version of Metropolis that we know, which was because it was shown and then it was cut massively. Sort of
Because it's long as fuck.
the version that we knew for most of kind of its release, for most of its time existing, was a very heavily cut version. The version that we have now, which is largely uncut, was discovered. Yeah, I think it was in like some museum in South America somewhere. Very random, which is cool when that stuff happens.
Yeah,
Um,
but it does make you think of like how many great silent films. What is it, like 90% of them are lost and all
yeah,
this other
something
stuff?
stupid like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of wild that those two would have been the ones that could have just been lost to history because they're probably like two of the most cited silent films that I think most people know.
Yeah, and they're probably two of the most influential ones, for sure. Especially in genre film. You know, you're talking about Nosferatu being like the formative horror film that kind of every horror film afterwards has the imprints of. And then the science fiction film that a lot of science fiction films afterwards have. You know, you can link back to Metropolis, or in terms of genre film, they're probably two of the most influential silents of all time.
Oh.
Anyway, onto this film specifically then, just in terms of touching on the filmmaker Murnau. Um, I haven't seen much of Murnau's films. I've seen obviously Nosferatu, and I've also seen his film Sunrise, which is excellent.
Mhm.
Sunrise is a very, very beautiful film. It's it's not a genre film or anything. It's about this kind of couple, and the husband's a little bit unhappy, and he travels to the city one day, and he starts getting tempted by women and gambling and alcohol, and he has to have this kind of moment in his life where he chooses what path he wants to follow. But it's a very beautiful film. And it's very, very well made. It's technically brilliant for the time that it came out, which was again in the 20s, 1927. But I've never seen anything else from him, although I've heard of a few titles like Faust and Taboo and City Girl. Not to pigeonhole anyone, Zach, but I doubt you've seen much more of Murnau. I'd say Chris, maybe, if two of you maybe would have seen something.
I did think before we started, I was like, yeah, we watched Pandora's Box. I'm like, no, that's another guy with two
That's
initials and a last name.
Pabst.
Pabst,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
G.W. Pabst.
Yeah. So I was like, no, I have not because I checked before we got on here.
What about you,
Um,
Chris?
I've seen Sunrise, and I still use Sunrise as an example of like a movie you should watch if you're skeptical on silent films at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Um,
Yeah, it's great.
but just such a, I don't know, just such a great movie in every way. One thing that I really like about Murnau is he does it here too. He really understands, I think, a visual language, and not only like the shadows, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and a lot of the cinematography, but even all the way down to the title cards. You know, he uses every possible opportunity to change the title cards and make them really like woven into the story in creative ways. Like if it's a letter, you know, it'll be cursive writing or these different things, and he does that in some capacity in Sunrise as well. And I found Faust for less than $10, and I bought it, but I didn't get a chance to watch it for this, and I was disappointed. I ran out of time because I've been wanting to see that for a long time. But yeah, no, I think Murnau is awesome, and there's an interesting on the Kino documentary for Nosferatu. There's a really interesting documentary that connects him to guys like Ernst Lubitsch and some of these other German filmmakers at the time, and how they were all kind of running around together. And it kind of, I don't know, it's just cool to think this amazing group of like German filmmakers were all knew each other and kind of, you know, producing stuff around the same time, and then left Germany to go around the world and make movies around the world.
So in terms of Nosferatu itself, so in turn, like with this film, I think I think it's excellent. We haven't actually talked about our thoughts on the film. I think this is excellent. Even now, over 100 years later, I find it so effective. The way that it's filmed, with the even like the stuff like the makeup and costume
Yeah.
design for Orlok. And we joked about this in our WhatsApp group. Chris, you had asked me like, did you find Orlok, Max Shrek scary? And yeah, I do. I think he's really, really frightening and really well designed. And what I like about Max Shrek's Nosferatu in comparison to the other two, or Count Orlok, I should say, in comparison to the other two we're going to talk about, he's just so otherworldly. He is like a demon in the night. There's just something that's just so like the best way I can put this is, and this is maybe because I've never seen Max Shrek outside of makeup, but I can't picture what Max Shrek would look like. Whereas with Kinski, I can see Kinski through the makeup. With Skarsgård, I can see Skarsgård through the makeup. With Max Shrek, I just feel like he is Count Orlok.
Mm.
And I know that this is kind of a plot point of Shadow of the Vampire, if I'm correct in saying that,
Yes.
Zach. I think that's kind of a plot that he is basically a vampire. Um, but that's how I feel when I watch, and I find Max Schreck's performance in this so enthralling and very frightening, and the filmmaking that's there is so there's some of it that's so modern and just so beautifully done. Like you have stuff in here that are essentially jump scares, but they were done, nearly like 80 years before jump scares were a thing. Um, you have obviously the iconic scenes of the shadow play, of Orlok's shadow going up the stairs and stuff. It's such magnificent filmmaking, really ahead of its time. The makeup design is fantastic. The only thing really that sets this one back compared to the later versions is that the human cast is not particularly great. And I think out of the three, this kind of connection with with Hutter and Ellen is probably the weakest out of the
Mm.
three.
Hmm.
Um, it feels a little bit underdeveloped in comparison to how the next two films would kind of push that. But I don't know, maybe that was just less of a creative decision and more just boundaries at the time that they couldn't really go as deep into this kind of strange sexual kind of relationship, sort of psychosexual relationship between Orlok and Ellen and Hutter as well to a degree. Um,
But
Maybe
I
they
think it's
couldn't push
also
that
like
boundary, but
I
yeah.
can also imagine if you're Murnau at that time. I could also imagine just being so focused on how Orlok is portrayed and like how those scenes go down and like you know what I mean? Like I could almost see that being like, okay, if this movie's gonna work, it's gonna work because of Orlok, not because of anything else, and like sort of being a little bit casual with the rest of it. Not even on purpose, but just kind of the way that, the mind would work. I could totally see just wanting to make sure that Orlok is perfect because he did. I mean, every scene Orlok is in, he nails it, right?
Yeah, and that's a good point because we had never seen something like Orlok before. This was the new part. Humans,
Right.
melodrama, love stories. Even at this point in 1922, everyone had seen it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not the important part. The important part is getting Orlocks and the horror scenes correct because that was what was new. So yeah, I can totally see what you're saying. Maybe there was just more of a focus put on those scenes.
Yeah, I mean, and we're still talking about it, right? Even if the other stuff is not as fleshed out, like it worked, I guess, for like um, we didn't need it. But man, I think this like I I'm curious to see how we end up going down. This was my second favorite one of the three, and I do think it's amazing. And I understand the history, uh, the historical significance, and I get why it's so beloved. And I hope people, any horror fan, does get around to this, to see the foundation of a lot of different kinds of horror, but certainly the vampire lore in movies. In the same way that Romero set the template for what zombie movies are, this kind of set the template for vampire movies, right? In a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Um,
I would call it essential viewing for
yeah.
anyone and for anyone who's a horror fan. And it's very easy, even if you're put off by silent films, it's very easy to watch. It's not like it's an incredible like there's some silent films that are difficult to watch, not because they're silent, but because they have quite heady plots,
Mm,
and following heady plots when all you can do is read intertitles can be tricky. Like off the top of my head, I think about, the Dr. Mabuse films, for
right.
example. The plots of those films are very heady. So I can
Sure.
understand someone not wanting to jump into Dr. Mabuse or Spieler, which is like a 5 hour film split into two parts with so many fucking subplots going on. Very difficult to follow. Whereas
Mhm.
Nosferatu is one of those silent films that's incredibly easy to watch. And almost to an extent, because the story of Dracula is just so well known, it's in the public consciousness, that
Right.
itself makes it easy to watch as well, because you do kind of know what's happening. You,
Hmm.
you you know what to expect. Kind of know who everybody is before the film's even started, because it's just such a famous story now. It's one of those things where if you were dipping your toe into silent film and wanted to explore the foundations of horror through what started with silent film, then it's a very easy film to watch, and I think it still largely holds up today as well.
I did have to remind myself because I have a little bit of a thing about like the reason I don't like Titanic is honestly 90% as much as we joke about it. But I don't care about a lot of the plot points, and I don't, most of the reason why I don't like it is because every scene I know where it's going, and my ADD kicks in, and I just find it really hard to sit through. And so I did catch myself in Nosferatu being like, "Do something unique," and I was like, "No, no, no. This is the first one. Like, chill,
Yeah.
just to sit down and enjoy it." And like, so
It's like when people give out a bit, like it's like when people go and watch the first Halloween film and complain how cliche it is.
right, right,
It's
right, right.
cliche because this fucking made it. This is it, you know.
This
This is the
is the
reason why
cliche.
it's cliche.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think this movie's great. Um, I'm curious if we debate as we go along as to what's the best one, but I don't really know what else there is to say about this. I mean, it's not famous for having a particularly troubled production. I mean, it's the movie was made.
Well, besides a vampire being on set.
Well, yeah, but Murnau could handle that. That's the honestly, it Shadow of the Vampire, I didn't rewatch it, but I have seen it a couple of times. It's an awesome movie. Like I would strongly recommend people see Nosferatu 1922 followed up with Shadow of the Vampire. Um, It's
Which, Chris, before I forget, did what are these ranked? I'm assuming very, very high on They Shoot Pictures and
oh yeah, yeah,
zombies.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So good question. So Nosferatu, Ein Symphonie des Grauens is number 11 on They Shoot Zombies.
I figured, yeah.
I'm just and then on They Shoot Pictures, I had not done this for this particular one yet. It is 147.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, totally.
No, no real shock.
No, I like this better than Rosemary's Baby, but I can see why Rosemary's Baby is rated high. Um, Jaws is better. I think this is better than Night of the Living Dead, but I mean, how do you argue about the influence of either one of those? But I think this is 100 times better than Night of the Living Dead. Um, and then the rest of the ones above that, The Thing, Texas Chainsaw, Halloween, Alien, Psycho, Shining, and The Exorcist. I mean, no real notes there. I think this should be 8 instead of 11.
I think it's just one of those things where like you have to really grasp at straws and pick apart hairs to try and say one of the like we're talking about the most influential films of all time.
Totally,
It's
totally.
like you really have to get the microscope out to try and dig up a reason why one might be better than the other when you get to this far up the lists.
No, I totally agree. It is interesting though. Nightmare on Elm Street is 12, and I disagree with that. Like I get the influence of Nightmare on Elm Street, but calling it 12,
No,
like I
Nightmare
don't
on Elm
know.
Street is good. It's good and it's so influential. Not
Yeah,
just not from a filmmaking point of view, from a cultural point of view. Freddy
all right.
Krueger is a cultural icon.
Okay.
Every
Yep.
kid on Earth is scared shitless of Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's
Craven made a pedophile a like rock star. That's
yeah,
like how wild that is.
crazy.
After his career on incest porn.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next one, I just want to say that one thing I almost forgot about until we were just wrapping up now. Um, there's one of the intertitles in this film that I think it just goes so fucking hard. It's the scene, and it's that famous scene from Dracula and obviously in Nosferatu now, where he's being brought by ship and he picks apart the crew one by one. And there's an intertitle at the end that says, "The ship of death has a new captain."
Oh
And I was
yeah.
like, that goes so fucking hard.
Yeah, that's a great.
That is like just like a dope intertitle to have. It's
Yeah.
just so good. The ship
Yeah,
of
yeah,
death
yeah.
has a new captain. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. I wonder if in the book it said um that there's a new captain on the ship of death, but they changed
Yeah,
it
maybe something like that. Yeah.
to
I'd have to check. I'd have to take out my copy and cross-reference but
but
yeah,
they
I
changed
just
it to
love
make
that
sure they weren't.
intertitle.
Yeah, yeah, no, awesome.
Cool. We move on to Werner Herzog.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's
Wait,
do
did you
Alrighty.
this.
am I going crazy, Zach? Did you give your like overall thoughts on this one?
I can give them real quick. Really good movie. Best episode of SpongeBob.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah,
Nothing
you
more
guys
to
pretty
say.
much summed up everything. That's why I didn't interject. I was like, yeah, they got it. I can't really add much else here.
Fair enough. Yes, we're gonna jump forward now. Oh, my math is not my strong suit. 57 years.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, 57 years. And we're staying in Germany. And we're going to be looking at a film called Nosferatu the Vampire, or Nosferatu Phantom der Nacht, by Werner Herzog, who is as big a character in real life as Nosferatu is in film. Um, and again, the story is very similar. A real estate agent leaves behind his beautiful wife to go to Transylvania to visit the mysterious Count Dracula and formalize the purchase of a property in Wismar. So this is interesting, and I didn't know this until I started watching this film. This is kind of like it's kind of like an adaptation of Dracula and a remake of Nosferatu all in one,
Yes.
because they use the proper names. So they have it's Count Dracula. It's not Count Orlok. It's Count Dracula. It's the Harkers rather than the Hutters. It's Renfield rather than Knox. So they use the proper names,
Yeah.
but stylistically it is more of a kind of remake of Nosferatu because there's a lot of scene. Well, obviously, the design of Dracula is closer than what you would see with Orlok versus
Yeah.
how he's described in the novel Dracula, for example, and
Yeah.
also much different to what the world would know as Dracula by this stage with Christopher Lee's and Bela Lugosi's version of Dracula, very very
Yeah.
different looking. So looks very much more like the Max Schreck Count Orlok than a traditional Dracula. And there's a lot of scenes that are almost kind of, almost shot for shot remakes of Nosferatu, um, but using the Dracula names, which I thought was interesting. Not that it's too important, because as we said, the story is essentially the same. Um, so with this one, I'll just jump in real quick. I was so confused. I'm still confused. I'm torn on this film. I have no idea if this film is good.
It
Um,
is.
but there's just so much in it that's like it throws me. Like this, maybe I'm the bad guy here, but I hate Klaus Kinski's version of Orlok.
Okay, we're gonna agree on that. Yeah, yeah, he's a whiny little bitch.
He's such a whiny little bitch, and
Ouch.
the way he just like squirms around, he's like not imposing at all. He's not scary. The way he just kind of just like slithers around scenes, just has a real mopey face about him. He's just he's he's just so far away from any version of Dracula or Orlok that I'm comfortable with. It's just I don't know what the idea was behind the performance. He's not scary. He's not imposing. He's just this. He's like a weird fucking mopey goth kid. It's just it really throws me off. But then like there's other stuff in the film that are that's cool. I think the way it's shot for the most part is pretty good. The set design is interesting. The costume design is all interesting. Isabella Gianni puts in a great performance as she always does because she's a great actress. Um, don't really know what to think of Bruno Ganz's um, Harker. And the Van Helsing character in this film is pretty much non-existent. He does pretty much nothing. Um, and it's just the vibes are so weird in this movie. It just has a really weird tone that I can't tell if Herzog actually even likes Nosferatu or or Dracula. I can't tell if this is actually a loving adaptation or if he's like, this is ridiculous. This is what scares you. This pathetic piece of shit is what scares you guys. This is
And that sounds
terrible.
much more like Herzog.
Yeah, it does. That's how I would picture him looking at this. I can't imagine him looking at this thinking that this is great horror. Um, but I don't know, it just has a weird charm about it as well. So that's why I'm just like really in the middle about whether I think this film is good. I definitely don't think it's great, but it's just about whether or not I think it's good or if it's just bad. It's really on that line of good and bad.
Yeah, when I remember when I first watched it, it almost felt kind of add on what you're saying. It almost felt like parody, like more than anything. Like maybe not like I don't know if it's intentional parody, but it just like you said, it just doesn't feel like it's really holding it in a loving regard, or it's at least poking fun at it. Which I mean, at this point, the movie's over half a century old. I mean, making fun of it makes sense, I guess, but it's a little odd.
What are you talking about? He's not making fun of anything. I'm so confused right now. Okay, look, this is 121st best horror movie of all time is rated by random people that
That's way too high.
well, it's my favorite one of the three we're talking about today, so I disagree. But then 1,257 on the issued pictures. I was trying to hold my tongue while y'all were bashing this beautiful movie. Um, First of all, I feel like I have to share some of these crazy Herzog backstories because I watched it with the commentary. Okay,
Uh,
he
Wait, there was a bad incident on set when Kinski and Herzog were on a set together. I can't believe it. I
No.
cannot believe it.
No, 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 no. He didn't get into that too much. He spoke well of Kinski, even though he said, obviously he brings his own negative energy to the set sometimes. But he didn't really bash him. But he went to Hungary, I think, Budapest, I think is what he said, or Romania. I'm pretty sure he said Hungary. And he bought 11,000 rats, and they painted every single rat gray to make it look like a death rat. And they got permitting for every port they went to. They went to like two or three different ports to shoot different scenes, and they got permitting. And every single time when they got there, even though they had permitting, the dock workers were like, "No, no, 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 no. This is way more than we thought." Um, and he had a huge typical Herzog style. He just like went off his rocker and had a huge battle with the basically the health and safety department of every port they went to. Um, he claims they never lost a rat. I have no idea how you can know that for sure.
Yeah, maybe he painted a number on each one. Put a little number on their feet, like there's number 817. I
Yeah,
thought we lost him for a minute.
yeah, good thing he's back. Um, but I just think that's the most Herzog story ever. Like the guy can't help himself but do something extravagant in his productions, right? Um, but he went on in detail as to say to really drive home the point that most of what Kinski did on screen was not Kinski's idea. It was like extremely detailed, crafted scene that was Herzog's idea, and he was like coaching Kinski on like exactly how to act, exactly where to put his hands, exactly where how to raise an eyebrow, like all the details were like all Herzog just like yelling at him to be very specific with
Did
his
he have a
act.
gun on him? This doesn't sound like Kinski at all.
Maybe he didn't feed him blood for a few days to get him
Yeah, I
weaker.
mean, telling Kinski what to do, I just assumed he'd do the opposite. Maybe that's what he figured out. He's like, Kinski, I want you to put your left hand there when he really wants him to put his right hand there. He's like, there we go. Got it.
Nailed it. Um, yeah, this was absolutely a story that he loved. And y- it's interesting because you can like I think Herzog is one of these directors, like maybe like Carpenter, maybe like Cronenberg, that has a very high opinion of themselves. Um, and you can debate whether or not his movies are the same quality as some of the great directors. I know his films don't resonate with everybody, but he's a very intelligent guy, and it's clear that like he had a good vision for this movie, and he executed it with love. As far as Kinski's Dracula, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess the ending, like in the moments where this is one thing I think is interesting. That every movie we're going to see, there's a different death scene, right? I'm assuming it's okay if we spoil this movie.
Yeah, I don't
We
see.
spoil every other film. What's the fucking
Yeah,
difference of this one? So, yeah.
No, but I mean,
yeah.
like specifically this, like everybody knows the story of Dracula,
Yeah,
right?
it's pretty much the same ending every time,
If you don't
just
know the story
done
of Dracula,
differently.
read something. But like, Dracula doesn't make it. He gets exposed to sunlight and the story ends, right? And every movie has like a different version of that. Um, and I think the difference for me, maybe this is what y'all are latching onto. You know, uh, Herzog meant this to be kind of like theatrical performances, and maybe that's what y'all are responding negative to because it does feel a little bit idiosyncratic compared to like seeing it on film and seeing so many different versions of vampires and Dracula, before. Because I do agree with you that the Van Helsing character is weird. Like they made him like a doddering old man or whatever. It's kind of weird. Um, so yeah, I think like the Kinski's performance is meant to be like very theatrical, like something that could be done on a stage. Um, so maybe that's part of it. I don't know. The shadow work is not as um, Like Eggers and Murnau went really hard on the shadow work, and Herzog shot it more just natural lighting, right? There's some shadow work, but he didn't go for the really dramatic um, contrasts and stuff in the same way that the other movies do. So maybe there's just it's almost like a Fassbinder movie or like a Herzog film where it's just not quite documentary style, but it's just shot very plainly. And maybe that's what y'all are responding to. I don't know. I loved it though. Like I loved the writing. I loved the way they shot everything. The only time I laughed a little bit was at the writhing at the end. I thought that was a little bit over dramatic and probably could have been handled better. Um, but yeah, man, I
The,
don't know. I love this one.
the one scene that like really just kind and it's an early one, so it like really hammered home that I wasn't having a good time is it's almost a shot for shot remake of a scene from the original Nosferatu where it's when Harker first kind of gets attacked by Dracula, and it's that scene where Dracula kind of slowly approaches and comes into the room. And,
Mm-hmm.
in the original Nosferatu, it kind of cuts between him and the door, and then Harker putting his hands over his face and stuff. And that scene, that's pretty much done shot for shot remake in
Hmm.
this, but it's all done as like one long shot. So, like, you have Bruno Ganz just lying in the bed with his arms over his face, and then suddenly, and honestly, you could have put a laugh track over this. It just has Kinski just slowly kind of slither into frame with and like looking kind of like, oh, I'm about to bite you. You better watch out. Here I am. And it's just, I couldn't believe that what I was watching wasn't parody because it felt like a scene out of, I don't know if you guys have seen the TV series or the film What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah.
It's a comedy about vampires, and it was like a scene out of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting. I mean, you're not wrong.
that scene like really threw me off because I felt like there should have been a laugh track over this. It was just so ridiculous. It was just so ridiculous. And I couldn't see how it would be construed in any way to be frightening. So that really threw me off for the whole film.
This was not covered in the commentary. I mean I agree with you that this was not frightening, but I don't think the first one is either, and certainly not hipster Dracula that we get in the silly third one. But I think like I think he was going more for like vibes than like necessarily scary. I don't know if that's like a simple way to say it.
Well,
Yeah, and
there's an
again,
intention when you compare them, right? Like 1922, while it's not going to be scary to us in 2025, was filmed in a way to be scary.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it
yeah.
was scary to a 1922 audience.
Right, right, right.
I don't think this is scary to a 1970, what, nine? Is
nine.
that right?
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
agree.
audience.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, so I guess what one could say is that perhaps Herzog was leaning more into the kind of weird romance
Yeah.
angle, and then Eggers, which we'll speak about, I find blends the two of them together quite well. Um, the horror and the weird psychosexual romance stuff, which we'll move on to in a moment. But yeah, like I definitely like I can't see a world where Herzog sat down and said, "This is a great horror film," because it's not scary, you know.
Doesn't even try to be.
It
Like,
doesn't try to be
yeah.
exactly. He doesn't try to be scary. At least in my opinion, I agree with Zach. I can't see a world where a 1979 audience that just watched Halloween the year before finds this scary.
No, I don't think. I think he was trying to make a art house picture more than a horror film. I agree with kind of the direction y'all are going. I guess I just liked it more, which is fair.
Yeah, I haven't seen a ton of Herzog. And actually I bought the BFI set
Hmm.
specifically to watch this movie. Like
Okay.
it's the whole reason I own that BFI set. So I've seen some random stuff from it. I like Herzog, but he's always one I always feel like I have to be in the right mood to watch him. Like he's definitely never a director I feel like I can just let me just go ahead and throw on I can't even randomly think of a Herzog movie.
Fitzgerald.
Grizzly Man right now or
Wrath of
shit like
God.
that. Yeah. Like Aguirre is one I had to watch twice to like it. Like that was just how he's always been anytime I've watched his movies.
I I do think I heard one time that Herzog's ideas are better than his execution, and as much as I hate to have something that's like a silly phrase like that overshadow a whole director's career, I really can't get that out of my head. I, like even with Fitzcarraldo, the scenes where they're actually moving a boat over a mountain and the backstory for that movie are just like amazing and insane and like captivating. Is the movie great? I don't know. Maybe. Like there's
Well,
parts of
and the backstory of the films almost tend to overshadow his films
yes.
themselves.
Yeah,
Like, you can't talk about Wrath of God without talking about every fucking like crazy ass Klaus Kinski story.
exactly.
Like, I mean, it's an impossible to separate. It's almost like talking about Apocalypse Now
Right.
and trying not to talk about the background
Yeah,
of
yeah,
Apocalypse Now.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I don't have anything specifically else to add on this. I mean, I also have very little to say about the third film, so we should get to it because I hope you all like it better um, than I did. But yeah, for me, this is one, and then Nosferatu 22 is number two.
Mine is 22 is 2. This is 3.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm the same.
all right.
Rightio, so let's go to fast forward to pretty much now. So came out Christmas Day in the US, came out New Year's Day here in Ireland. So very, very new film, Nosferatu by Robert Eggers. This is the second out of third month in which we've done a Robert Eggers film. So we're going to slowly get through his filmography this year, just for
Uh-huh.
Chris.
Mhm.
But
There's
yeah,
2 more to
so
go.
exactly. So again, the plot very basic: a gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and a terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. So once again, the story beats very, very similar. What this film does that the other two haven't, well, I say the other two haven't. I feel that the Herzog film gets the ball rolling on developing the relationship between Ellen and Orlok. They start to have we start to see that a bit more in the Herzog film. This film really hammers home that kind of connection that becomes all pretty much the main plot point. This kind of strange relationship that these characters have with one another, and this film really maximizes that. It even creates a backstory for them, prior to the film's events taking place, which again is something completely new that hasn't been kind of tackled before in a previous adaptation. Um, but a lot of the other story beats are very similar. I just feel like this film really does just kind of try and maximize everything, even just as simple as, giving backstory to characters that were only kind of briefly seen in previous ones, like, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, for example. Um, and the Doctor, the Sievers, there's a lot of characters in the 1922 film that are only very briefly on screen and mentioned, and this film tries to give everyone a bit more of a beefier role. Um, so, Chris, you like this one the least, definitely, because I know Zach loves this film. I've seen it twice and I like it. So curious, Chris, to see what you
Yeah.
think, why you don't like it first, before
So
me and Zach can tell you why you're wrong.
it's impossible to watch this and not mention it is a beautiful film. Like, I think now that I've seen The Northman and this, Eggers has an incredible way with visuals. Like what he is able to put on screen. I don't know how he gets some of the effects and shots that he does, but he's a master visual artist. Like that's unquestionable in my mind, and I enjoy watching his movies. And I even had a good time with this one. For every scene, like it's a good period piece, and the characters are fine until Dracula gets on the screen. I hated his interpretation of Dracula. The stupid voice, the stupid mustache, the way he shot him, like I hated everything about it. Like I was neutral to really enjoying it when Dracula wasn't on screen, and visibly or like angry when he was on screen. It just I I don't think this is like the book. I think this is just his interpretation of it, and I have no idea what he was trying to do with this. Um,
So, what he wanted to do with this, so he's trying to put it more like where Dracula takes place more in, it's more into England and things like this. This is from Eastern Europe to Germany. So he that's already kind of where he wants to place the film because it's more of a Nosferatu film than a Dracula film. But his decision for why he designed Count Orlok the way he did was because his interpretation of Dracula or Count Orlok, however you want to put it, is that he would be a Eastern European nobleman, like a Roman nobleman. So the design of Orlok is completely the hair, the mustache, all that would be what would be common for a nobleman at that time.
Yeah, even
well,
if you pull up the kind of painting of Vlad Dracul or Vlad the Impaler, it's the big mustache. That's kind of where he's getting this from. He's making it more authentic to being someone from the Transylvania region. Uh,
which fits Egger's like history buff kind of nature, right?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
like this is his least historically grounded, but there's still a lot in there.
I probably could have gotten over the aesthetic of the mustache as much as I was laughing at hipster Dracula if he didn't talk like this. I was like, dude, chill out. Like, we're not making another Star Wars movies here. Like, calm down. So I just didn't like anything he did for the character. I'm sorry. And I really for this particular movie, I feel like it's kind of important to vibe with the Dracula character. Um, and so this one for me is difficult. But I'll anything else you want to talk about in the movie, like it's great. It's like 4.5 to 5 out of 5 on everything else, 0.5 out of 5 on Dracula for me.
I think always is going to be the tough part with like doing like Count Orlok's voice is because he doesn't have an iconic voice to kind of through from. When you talk about Dracula, you got like Lugosi.
Sure.
Like when you think of Dracula, you think of Lugosi. You think of the way his cadence. You think of things like that. Count Orlok doesn't really have that. So I think there's always going to be an interesting swing anytime, like as a director, you're like, okay, how am I going to make him sound? And I think when we go back to like the 22 version, you talk about like, okay, he feels alien, he feels monstrous more than human. Like when we talk about Lugosi and things like that, who feels more human? Um, and I think that would be what I would assume Skarsgård is going for with his performance is how do I sound almost otherworldly
Hmm.
while still, not using voice modifications and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand some people not liking the voice. I'm pretty neutral on the voice. It did throw me off. When he first started talking, I was like, "What the fuck?" Because I was expecting more of a Lugosi style. Um, but I'm pretty neutral, and like I said, I've seen this film twice, so like I'm just used to it now. But it has actually become a bit of a meme. People are like recording TikToks
Yeah.
dressed up as him doing the voice. Like there's one really funny one that Neve showed me before, and the guy's dressed up as Orlok, and he goes, "You like talk as if talking to a woman. It's like you will bounce on it, crazy style." It's just become a bit of a meme. So I can get people not digging the voice, like, because I kind of got over it. It wasn't a big deal breaker for me. The hair is worse than anything for me. I don't know what goes on with his weird hairstyle.
Thank you.
Um, the
Yeah,
mustache
that's
is
also
fine.
like that's also something goes into it's like a spot like off center of your hair. And yeah, it's a I don't know, like it's one of those things when you look at like history, it's like, why did you do that to your hair? Like
Yeah,
why did you make that decision in life?
it's like a Peaky Blinders haircut to the
Yeah.
max. So it's that was a bit weird, but I quite like Orlok in this one. I find him very imposing. He does feel like a threat. Again, this probably goes back to what you were just saying a moment ago, Chris. Like if you don't like the Orlok or the Dracula, then you're probably going to struggle maybe with the rest of the film, and that's perhaps why I didn't like the Herzog one that much because I don't like the Orlok. So I can kind of get where you're coming from. I like this Orlok because I find him scary. I find him imposing. And, this is a a creature that makes sense for people to live in fear of. You have that kind of scene early in the film where Nick Holt's character arrives at the kind of village, the Romanian village, and he mentions he's going up to the castle, and they're all like, no, you can't go, you don't go to the castle,
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
speak. There's an immediate fear there, so I feel like to have that kind of an effect on the kind of general population of your film, you need to have an imposing character, and I feel that that was really well done. Um, for me,
There's
my
this. No,
sorry,
go
go ahead.
ahead. Sorry. No, you go ahead.
Yeah, just the only thing, like I agree with you, Chris. Again, very beautiful film, set design, costume design. I think the performances are largely great. I didn't vibe at Aaron Taylor Johnson's performance the first time I saw it. I thought he was like very. I just didn't think he was good at all. I
He's a
did,
weak point for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
like
I didn't mind him as much the second time around because he was. I was looking at him more campy. I was trying not to take his character as serious, and I didn't mind it the second time around because of that. Um, but I think the support cast are largely great. I think Lily Rose Depp is fantastic in this film. She really does keep it moving. Nick Holt is good. Willem Dafoe shows up and does Willem Dafoe things.
which is
Ralph
yeah. I
Ineson's
remember
great as well.
when he was announced, everyone thought he was going to do Orlok, but
Yeah,
I'm glad he doesn't because he had already done that once.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was nice that he kind of played the foil of Orlok.
yeah, and I think he's a good choice for a Van Helsing style character. I
Oh
think he
yeah.
fits. I think he fits the mode very well. Um, One thing that I didn't, not that I didn't like, but I was kind of on the fence about when I first saw it, and when I saw it again, it kind of cleared it up a little because I was able to kind of put the pieces together. The idea of how far they expand the kind of backstory between Ellen and Orlok kind of threw me off because, I struggle to understand why they had this. I understand, Lily Rose Depp's character was you know, struggling with her life and looking for a connection, and she inadvertently summoned this demon to her and whatever. But I couldn't understand why Orlok kept, specifically wanting her when I'm sure there's a million thirsty wenches in the land looking for a demon to lay with, and why specifically he was looking for her. I understood it better the second time because obviously they talk about her own kind of supernatural abilities that it kind of went over my head the first time I was watching it. Um, but I think, yeah, for me, the only negative I would say with this film is that I do feel it's a little bit bloated because of all this stuff. There's a lot of backstory. There's a lot of characters that are suddenly getting a lot more screen time and therefore need to be developed. I feel like there's a lot of bloat in the film, but then at the same time, the last act almost feels rushed. We don't really get to see the plague as much as you would,
Mm-hmm.
even in like the Herzog version, for example. Everything wraps up quite quickly. So I feel like the script maybe could have been maybe moved around a bit to kind of make things a bit more even because it feels very top loaded. There's a lot happening in the first hour, and then the second hour is just trying to wrap everything up. So that's my only negative after seeing it twice, that I would say. But I think otherwise it's a pretty good film. It's like I said, it's beautiful. I think the performances by and large are very good. I personally enjoy this interpretation of Orlok, although I understand why maybe some people wouldn't like it that much. I personally do. Um, but yeah, I think it's a very solid film. I don't really have too much negative to say apart from what I mentioned about, maybe a bit of bloat here and there.
What
Yeah,
one?
I actually don't disagree with you on the blood. I think it comes across to me as someone who this is like a passion project and they just don't want to cut anything, even though it might be best that a couple things get cut or, like you said, moved around or something like that.
No, that's exactly it. So when he was in like high school or college or something, he made this exact thing as a play. And it like somebody saw it and like asked him to make his adaptation of the play into like either like a local play or like a little bit more of a regional play, but there's like this is tied to how he got discovered as a director. This version of the story we saw on screen. So you're exactly right. Like this is a very much a personal story for him. Um, and I will say, Adam, you mentioned something I wanted to call out. Far and away, best death of the franchise. It had a great
That
um,
score is so good. I've listened to it so many times. The
yeah,
score at the end of that one, yeah, it's good.
visually too. Like it's such a grotesque and gnarly image. Like I love it. So yeah, like I kind of felt this way about the Northman too, although not as much. I did like the Northman more. I kind of wish he would have like a Spike Jones to his Charlie Kaufman, or I don't know which one he would be in this case, but I wish he had a partner that would be working hand in glove with him to help him make a few choices that are like maybe a little tighter. I think he'd be an
Well, I
all-timer.
mean, he actually does. He hires an Icelandic poet that works with him as a
Yeah,
writer.
you know, oh, the Soar guy or
Yeah, yeah. He wrote The Northman, and I believe he helped write this one as well. And I know he's writing Labyrinth with him.
okay. Well,
I think
I mean,
Chris wants an actual writer,
Yeah,
a
yeah. I mean, I
seasoned
don't know how much
screenwriter to
like
come in, not a poet.
yeah,
yeah.
that's more what I
The
was
poet's an
thinking.
interesting choice, but yeah, I see what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, it does. There is definitely someone else there at least.
No, 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 sorry. I don't mean to laugh. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't know that. But yeah, definitely I was thinking something a little bit more grounded in like non-poetry stuff.
Well, see,
Although,
Chris, I think you're very lucky in the way you've approached the Eggers filmography, because for me, we've been going from his, and I don't want to say worst because the Northman isn't bad, but we're going from his worst now to like the next two that you would have left to watch, I think, are his two best films.
hmm,
So I think you will actually, from what you're saying, from what I'm understanding of what you're requesting from Eggers, I think you will get a lot more out of The Lighthouse and The Witch because they are much more kind of they're
They're
not
smaller
sprawling.
stories, so
They're
yeah,
smaller
yeah,
stories, they're chamber
yeah.
pieces essentially. So I think you will get a lot out of those because
great.
they're all set in basically one location. There's not a lot of plot to juggle with because they're chamber pieces basically.
That's cool. And I do want to separate the art from the artist. I love listening to Robert Eggers talk about his movies. Like he comes off as so intelligent and so precise. His interviews are fantastic. So, um, totally couldn't possibly disagree more with his take on Dracula. Rest of the movie's great. Um, Great death at the end, and I do still like him a lot. And he'd be like a dream guest for me to sit down with because I bet you this man can talk about movies forever. Like he seems like somebody who really loves the filmmaking. So
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you ended up reading. He did a piece for I think Alamo Draft House where he was talking about like his inspirations for this movie
oh
that
cool,
he would like highly recommend. And big one was Cries and Whispers was a big one.
nice.
Yeah, and then I think Queen of Spades, which is like a 49 if memory serves right, a horror film. So yeah, I mean, obviously the guy's very versed in what he likes and uses it. Because I mean, yeah, there's definitely some Bergman influence, at least the amount of Bergman I've watched.
Oh, 100%. Um, yeah, and also, I mean, credit to Lily Rose Depp. There's this whole thing about I've been seeing these weird articles pop out about the whole Nepo baby movement in Hollywood right now. Um, but I think she earned this role. She was awesome in it. Like, I don't know, I can't think of three actors that would have been better in the role. I think she nailed
Yeah,
it.
there was a lot of negative pushback when it was announced she was doing it because it was originally supposed to be Anya Taylor-Joy, because
Correct.
obviously
Yeah.
she's worked with Eggers for three out of his four films. It was supposed to be her, and then I can't remember what the reason was for her dropping out, but anyway, she
Miller
dropped.
can't keep schedule, so Furiosa ran long.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And then it was
That's what it
announced Lily
was.
Rose Depp was coming in, but the problem with Lily Rose Depp was obviously the Nepo baby stuff, but also she had just come off the back of a critically reviled HBO series called The Idol, which was just absolutely just decimated by the critics to the point where
Okay.
HBO didn't even air the last two episodes. They just
Oh,
pulled
wow.
it because it was just so hated. So everyone
Wow.
was like, why the fuck is Lily Rose Depp getting this massive role? blah blah blah. But yeah, I think she was great in it. I've never seen her in anything, I'd never, but so
Same.
I went in with minimal expectations, but I thought she
I've
was
seen her in
fantastic.
Tusk. Yeah, that's the only thing I've seen her in. I think beyond that is Tusk.
Nice.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith's Tusk.
Yeah, because
Nice.
his daughter and Johnny Depp's daughter are the like clerks in Tusk.
Nice. But yeah, I mean, she nailed it. I think she has a lot of Isabella Johnny kind of vibes in the way that she really like throws
Well, she
herself into
she
the
mentioned
performance.
that possession was one of her inspirations in her performance.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I got
I
that
think
Herzog connection now.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. The
Uh, But yeah, one of the things I remember from behind the scenes was apparently when she saw that scene where she's like, I don't know if you call it possessed in the film or whatever, like she's doing like her eyes are going back, her mouth's like wide open, her tongue's doing weird shit. Apparently when she saw the daily, she's like, oh, that's cool that you added like all that stuff in post. He's like, I didn't add anything. He's like, that's all you.
You're just
That's
fucking
wild.
weird, girl.
That's wild. Um, yeah, I was gonna make a comment, make like a little joke about this being more like The Exorcist than a vampire movie, but it's probably not fair to say that. I mean, I think he was pulling inspiration from a lot of different horror, not just vampire lore. Um, and your mileage may vary and if you resonate with it or not. But that's some of the bloat you're talking about. I think they probably could have calmed down a little bit on like all the different genres they were trying to force into this. Um, but I don't know. I mean, it's hard to. I don't want to shit on the movie too much. It's not like it's a bad movie. Like there's a lot of good in this. I just wish they would have done Dracula different.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from with not liking Orlok's design and stuff.
Yeah,
It's one of those things where I get it. I personally do like it, but I get why other people wouldn't.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Any final thoughts on Nosferatu 3? Nosferatu 3? Nosferatu.
No, this was fun. This was a good time.
Awesome.
If
Zach, why don't you
not that
tell us?
anybody.
Sorry,
Oh,
Chris, go
no,
ahead.
no, 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 just before you get, because I definitely want to, just one quick point. If anybody listens and does want to find us on Instagram or Reddit or anywhere, I would love to hear if there's an essential Dracula movie that we haven't seen. I'm kind of into mode now to like compare. So
Well, Kinski has like an unofficial sequel to Nosferatu, right? Or at least played him again in like what Nosferatu in Venice.
that's true.
Oh,
That's true.
that's insane.
Severin put it out, right?
I think so. Yeah, yeah. I think they were the ones.
That's right. Yeah, I'll definitely be watching that soon then. I'll pull that down tonight. Um, but yeah, if there's anything else that we didn't cover, like I would love to kind of get into this a little bit. Like you said, not the Bela Lugosi stuff. Like, not that it's bad, it's fun, but like I've seen those, I get it. Like, I know what he's trying to do. But any others that are kind of like out there a little bit and doing something interesting with it, I'd love to hear about.
But
Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
wasn't there, just while we're on the topic of random vampire movies, wasn't there another Nosferatu film that came out last year?
Yeah, it's like fucking free on Tubi, and all I've heard is terrible things about it. But yeah, there was like one that came out like a
Doesn't it
year
have
before.
doesn't it have Doug Jones in it? Doesn't Doug Jones play Nosferatu? Or am I crazy? Am I making that up?
Let me look it up because because it's I was just actually on that page on Letterboxd.
Oh, it
Um,
came out 2023. It's 2023 apparently.
yeah, it is Doug
Um,
Jones though.
yeah,
Yeah,
Doug Jones.
which is good casting.
It
I
is
mean, I
good
haven't seen.
casting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'll sit down and watch it. Which the ratings are a little bit better than I expected. It was a 2.8. I was for some reason thinking this was one of those ones that's like a 1.8. So I don't know. Maybe I'll throw it on. It's free to watch.
Yeah. There you go. Sorry to interject again, Zach. Tell us what we're going to be watching next time, please.
Well, since we're on the subject of Chris having bad takes, I thought we would go back to a bad take he had long time ago for long-time listeners. Chris hated Vertigo. You can go listen to our episode and how he trashed it for, I don't know, like an hour. So I thought I would see if he can see the light, and we're going to do three movies heavily inspired and probably almost taking the plot beat for beat for Vertigo. So we're going to start with Lucio Fulci on One on Top of the Other, which I did not even know, didn't even know existed until I was like, man, I want to do these other two movies, but I feel like I need a third one to add, and this one popped up. So We'll be watching a Fulci movie, and then we're going to watch a De Palma film, which is Obsession, which, Adam, you had seen. I have not seen it.
I've seen it. Guys, it's fucking wild. Wait till you watch this movie. It's a fucking insane. It is an insane film.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, him doing Hitchcock is like pretty normal, but I'm kind of excited to see how he does Vertigo. And then the last one is one that came out very recently, which is Park Chan-wook's Decision to Leave, which, from my understanding, doesn't take the plot of Vertigo, but very much feels like Vertigo. So we'll have a little variety in plot.
And another amazing film. Just on Obsession, here's my Letterboxd review for Obsession. Yo, Brian, what the fuck, bro? That's my review for Obsession. An insane film. A Decision to Leave is amazing. I'm really looking forward to rewatching that. That was my favorite film of 2023 or 2022 when it came out. I can't remember.
I don't know. I think it came out towards the end, like maybe in festivals in 22, but I feel like it officially came out in 23.
Yeah, I think that's right. That was it was like I had like two favorite films in that year that I watched that week, that and After Sun, and they were like my top two films of that year. Yeah, I'm gonna rewatch it because I thought I want to rewatch it because obviously I haven't seen it since it came out. And I'm looking forward to the Fulci one because I also didn't know it existed, and I'd only recently started watching some Fulci films at the back end of last year. But I didn't know about this one, so looking forward to seeing how he tackles it. I assume it's just all going to be vibes if I know Fulci. There's going to be no plot, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, that would be my assumption, which it's a black and white one for him. So this one's, I guess, pretty newish. I mean, oldish in his career. Like, yeah. So I came out in 69.
Oh yeah, that sounds like it's probably early in his career because most of his big stuff was in the 70s, right? Like Zombie and
Hell, I think Zombie was like 79 or 80. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I suppose all the ones he kind of did with quote unquote in America.
Most of
were 80s.
Most of the
they?
ones you know about are going to be in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. So be 69 be very early for him.
But all right, well, I had a good time, guys. Thanks.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, folks.
Super good time. Good picks.
Catch you
Thanks
next time.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror. We'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.